Namaskar. Welcome to this edition of the India Foundation podcast. This edition of the India Foundation podcast features Tithi Shastrat, the date debate. In this edition, we have with us Dr. Neera Mishra, chairperson of Draupadi Dream Trust, Dr. Vedveer Arya, independent scholar, and Professor Sunaina Singh, Vice Chancellor, Nalanda University. Let's begin.
Let's start with the way Indians start. Varakalpe, Kalyuge, Jambudipe, Bharat Khande, Aryavarte, Bharat Varshe, इंद्रप्रस्थ दिल्ली प्रदेशे आज विक्रम संवत 2077 शुक्ल पक्ष की नवमी के दिन में नीरा मिश्रा कंपिलवासी इंद्रप्रस्थ निवासी शैरसवत्सवा गोत्र coming from the 10th generation of Sri Rama on behalf of Draupadi Dream Trust and myself आप सबका हार्दिक स्वागत और अभिनंदन करती हूँ. It's a great pleasure and honor and privilege to welcome such a august gathering to this knowledge manthan titled Tithi Shastrat. We have gathered here to understand how far we have reached in structuring the chronology of our historical journey and what more is needed, because knowledge has to be translated into meaningful information for dissemination to people, then only it is knowledge worth. I deliberately started with the Sankalp mantra to emphasize the importance of our ancient seers that they have given us to time, space, and continuity of civilizational knowledge and our own space and identity in it. Knowledge of our historical journey in terms of scientifically validated data embedded in our texts, inscriptions, astronomical data in our epics, and the immense information unearthed by our archaeologists has become important because many factors combined in promulgation of fallacious history post 1947, and many generations have been deprived of our factual knowledge. We all know about the damages in the medieval times and the Macaulay system has done, and of course the post 1947, the ideological communist ideological approach. But besides that, we have also few other things to think of. Our epics have been taught only as works of good literature and philosophy, ignoring completely the geographical and historical data embedded in them. Secondly, the teaching of epics as religious texts only internationally by people who do not or chose not to understand the Western that the Western concepts of religion are different to the Bharatiya spiritual knowledge systems. Now, in all this confusion, our chronology was blurred, assumed chronologies incorporated to suit their limited historical knowledge, and our Itihas has suffered. Now, the pleasant surprise today, in today's time, is that noteworthy work of revival of chronological knowledge has been done by independent scholars because the mainstream education has been too wary or maybe not promoted to touch this subject. When current textbooks cover thousands of years of our history in just 50 pages and devote hundreds of pages to medieval and colonial history, we all know it is time to energize our scholars and systems and to correct the flaws. The Draupadi Dream Trust that started in 2013 from the Vedic city of Kampilya, which is an ASI protected site, seeing the pathetic condition, we were appalled that how come that our historical knowledge is people don't even know about it. In this 18 years, we have done 8 workshops, international workshops, and touched upon ancient Indian civilization and culture and touched upon the chronology and dating, but there has been a problem. These conferences, published material have been good content for research, but have limitations because so much wide variety of inferences have been presented by the scholars. So the question arises, if all are using the same textual information, same astronomical data, why is there such a gap in dates? In regard to archaeology, we are all aware of the pioneering work of Professor B.B. Lal when he started in the 1950s with epic archaeology of Hastinapur. But archaeology was introduced by the colonial rulers, and comparatively, I think it's a limited new science compared to our Vedic sciences. Plus, archaeologists can only date a product and give the antiquity of a place. Still, there is a dispute on what is the cultural sequencing of all the epics. Herein lies the importance of multidisciplinary Tithi Shastrat to explore and to sieve, to synergize and arrive at results that satisfy scholarly interpretation and serve our purpose of incorporating in mainstream teaching of our historical journey with proportionate space in the books. So I think with these little observations, I would like to hand over, I would like to invite our honored chief guest today to share his valuable views. And in between, if there is time in the interaction, we can continue with more information. I would like you to just have one more point to be considered, that it is important for us to understand the methodology of that was used by our ancient scholars in documenting our history. And when we follow that methodology, we are able to arrive at a very good conclusion of how our historical journey has progressed. And it is very, very authentic. It's just that it needs to be told in the proper way to our people. Thank you so much. And I thank India Foundation and Ram Madhavji and General Katoj for being so kind enough to associate for this important subject, because so much more needs to be done. And with your support, I'm sure we will reach the objective of having very soon in our textbooks. Thank you.
महाभारत काल के ऊपर समय निर्धारण के लिए सबसे पहले मैं अपना पीपीटी शेयर करता हूं कि कैसी मेथडोलॉजी हमको अडॉप्ट करना चाहिए। फिर उसके बाद मैं टेक्सचुअल एविडेंसेस में आपके सामने प्रस्तुत करूंगा। विशेष रूप से जब भी हम कुरुक्षेत्र वार या महाभारत वार, whenever we talk about, it is not anything we should decide the date on just internal evidence. We have to consider all internal, external evidences for arriving the Kurukshetra war. It's actually reconciliation of all evidences. We must adopt no selective acceptance, no selective rejection methodology. Then any rejection of evidence must be factually explained why I am not considering this particular evidence. Then only valid translations of Sanskrit shlokas, because I have found that some people are translating shlokas even violating the Sanskrit grammar. So we must, alternative translations are welcome, but the context is more important. The translation should match the context, as well as the valid with reference to Sanskrit grammar, that is important. Then while establishing the chronology, we have to, even not only the date of Mahabharata war, we have to establish the entire chronology from Brihadratha dynasty to Gupta dynasty, because Puranas give the chronology starting from the Mahabharata war till Gupta dynasty, as well as we have to establish the Buddha Nirvana date. We just go through the internal evidence. So the Adi Parva, it clearly mentions that the Mahabharata war took place at the end of Dwapara Yuga. So we have to unravel the chronology of these yugas, because we have to fix the date of Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and then Kali Yuga. And traditional evidence like Rajatarangini, even entire tradition, Indian tradition says that the war took place just after the end of the Dwapara Yuga. So even internal evidence of Mahabharata, it clearly mentioned Akriti to Prayatnesman Upavrittah Kalirmaha. And Etat Kaliyugam Nama Achiradyat Pravartate in Vanaparva. Then Praptam Kaliyugam Vidhi Pratigyam Pandavasya Shalya Parva. Then Udyoga Parva Kale Kale Sattva Vatamvara. So there are more than 4 verses in Mahabharata clearly indicate that Kali Yuga had already been commenced just before the Kurukshetra war. So we have to establish the end of Dwapara Yuga and the beginning of Kali Yuga so that we can fix the date of Mahabharata war. Then Aryabhatiyam, clearly the Aryabhata indicates the 4th Yugapada, the Kali Yuga, has commenced Bharatat Purvam. It means before Mahabharata war. So clearly the Aryabhatiyam also in line with the internal evidence of Mahabharata. There is another statement in the Puranas that Sri Krishna left the mortal world the day he left, on the same day Kali Yuga has commenced. So, but Mahabharata says Sri Krishna left the mortal world in the 36th years after Mahabharata. So these two appear to be contradictory, but it's not contradictory. I'm going to explain how this both can be explained. Then we have a Saptarshi cycle. India followed traditionally from Treta Yuga onwards the Saptarshi cycle of 2700 years. And many Puranas, Vayu Purana, Vishnu Purana, Brihat Samhita, Kali Yuga Raja Vrittanta, Raja Tarangini, they all mention that when Yudhishthira was ruling, Saptarshis were in Magha. I want to just highlight here that here we are not talking any astronomical observation. Actually, when Yuga length have been enhanced from 5-year Yuga to some 1200 years and 12,000 years, there was a need to count the elapsed years. For counting the elapsed years, the rishis come out of an idea, why not we assign 100 years to a particular nakshatra? So it's not an astronomical dating, it's only how this epoch has been, when this cycle has been started. Based on that, we can arrive the date of the, like Saptarshi cycle was 2700 years. The first 100 years was 6777 to 6677 BC. These 100 years have been assigned to Ashwini Nakshatra. Just to remember, because we know that 27 nakshatras, I think Indians followed a very lunisolar calendar from the beginning of Vedic era. So the nakshatras were well known. So every nakshatra has been assigned 100 years. So the first cycle had 2700 years. The second cycle, Ashwini Nakshatra, was 4777 to 3977. So that second cycle was from 4077 to 1370. What you have to do, Magha Nakshatra was the 10th Nakshatra. So exactly 3176 to 3076. This was the 100 years. So that Saptarshi cycle clearly indicates that the Mahabharata war took place between these 100 years. So we have to now find out the exact date between these 100 years. So Mahabharata war cannot be dated before 3176 BCE, not after 3076 BCE as per the Saptarshi cycle. Our entire Puranic tradition, as well as the even Vriddha Garga also mentioned that when Yudhishthira was ruling, that time Saptarshi cycle reached the Magha Nakshatra. Now the epigraphic evidence. So I wanted to corroborate the Saptarshi cycle, whether it has any evidence. What I have established that during the 3176 to 3076, at that in those 100 years, Saptarshis are in Magha Nakshatra. There is a Hisse Borala inscription. It is a Vakataka inscription that refers to Saptarshaya Uttarasu Phalgunishu Shakanam 380. So now I have established, this is the very complex subject that I will, so this Shakaira had two different epochs. One was the ancient epoch 583 BC and Shakanta, actually what we use presently 78 AD. There is an error of 661 years. So the Shaka 380 mentioned is actually related to BC. So 583 BC, you minus 380, 203 BC was the date in which the Hisse Borala inscription was actually engraved. So Saptarshaya Uttar, so this 100 years, 276 to 176 BC, Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra. If you calculate backwards, exactly 3176 to 3076 was the 100 years block in which the subcycle of the Saptarshi cycle, in which Saptarshis were in Magha Nakshatra. So this is the inscription, what has been published in the Epigraphia Indica. Then while dating the Kurukshetra war, now we have to establish the Dwapara Yuga, because we are using Surya Siddhanta calendar, the Chaitra Shukladi calendar, just last 2000 years or just 2200 years. Prior to that, we were using, mostly we were using Magha Shukla Pratipada calendar in Paitamaha Siddhanta. That's why since the 3176 BCE was the beginning of the Kali Yuga for the Paitamaha Siddhanta, so 2400, this was the Dwapara Yuga. So Dwapara Yuga ended 3176 BC. Saptarshis were in Magha Nakshatra, and the date of Kurukshetra war must be 100 years, what I have. Now, how to arrive an epoch of Kali Yuga? I just want to highlight here that the epoch of Kali Yuga it's not that a time cycle is fixed for every astronomical Siddhanta. That's not correct. Every Siddhanta had its own epoch of Kali Yuga, but that is within the 70 years of the 3176 to 3101 BCE. Why so? I'll just explain. Like in a Paitamaha Siddhanta, a Siddhanta which is following the Saptarshi cycle, you can commence a Kali Yuga only within after completion of 100 years. You can't start in between. Either you have to start a Kali Yuga in 3176 BC or 3076 BC. You can't commence any. So in Paitamaha Siddhanta, 3101 cannot fit for the Kali Yuga epoch. So this was the epoch in a Paitamaha Siddhanta Magha Shukladi calendar. 316 BC was the epoch of Kali Yuga. In Brahma Siddhanta, which followed a Prabhava Samvatsara starting when Jupiter was in Ashwini Nakshatra. This was also very important because like Paitamaha Siddhanta followed the Saptarshi cycle of 2700 years and subcycle of 100 years, where this Brahma Siddhanta followed the 60-year cycle. So you can't start in between. The Kali Yuga must start from Prabhava Samvatsara. So this was the epoch. Today what we are following the 60-year cycle, we follow this epoch 3173 BCE. When Jupiter was in Ashwini Nakshatra. There was another school of Brahma Siddhanta in which Prabhava Samvatsara can commence only when Jupiter was in Dhanishta Nakshatra. Brihat Samhita also mentions this, and as well as the other Surya Siddhanta also, that Latadeva. So this is how, when Latadeva compiled the Surya Siddhanta, he mentions conjunction of planets in very important for beginning of Kali Yuga. So we must see, there were 4 or 5 different schools of Siddhantas which describe about the beginning of Kali Yuga in the 32nd century BC. But the problem is, we are since last 2000 years we are following the Latadeva Surya Siddhanta. That's why we generally assume that 3101 BCE is the only epoch of Kali Yuga. That is not correct. There are different epochs in a 3 to 4 different Siddhantas. Then I'll tell you this Aihole inscription. This is the inscription evidence which gives the exact dating of the Mahabharata. Trimshastru tri sahasreshu bharatadahavaditaha saptabda shatayukteshu gateshvabdeshu panchasu panchashassu kalokale. So in this one, what the major issue is here, the saptabda shatayukteshu. I think many Sanskrit scholars are sitting here. This, in case sapta shatabda yukteshu, then we can translate it to 700 years. Saptabda shata, saptabdanam, saptabdaha shatam. This is the Dvandva Samasa here. It cannot be sapta shatabda. If it is sapta shatabda, then you can translate 700. But translating as a 700 is the incorrect translation of this shloka. And there is also a problem whether this sa is not clearly visible in the inscription. Just it may be praptabha. So we need to find out first what is there. But then Gateshvabdeshu, it is perfectly okay. So now we can arrive actually Trimshatsu 30, 3000, 100 or 107, then 5 years. If you are down 3135 years, that what we have to do, we have to reconcile with the Shakaira given in this inscription. So we need to understand the epoch of Shakaira. The Indian epigraphs and numerous inscriptions and copper plates have been rejected as a forgery by the colonial archaeologists and colonial epigraphists, since they could not explain certain inscriptions. Those I have established that there was an ancient Shaka that commenced in 583 BC. Traditionally, Varahamihira, Kalidasa were in the court of Vikramaditya, who was in 1st century BC, and Varahamihira, Kalidasa both refer to Shakaira. So this was the chronological problem in case Shakaira commenced only in 78 AD. There is an ancient Shaka existed which we have forgotten. That we can rediscover if we study the inscriptions. So based on that, I have arrived the 583 BC based on the Kurtakoti copper plate, which refers to a total solar eclipse that cannot be explained if you take the year of 530 Shaka in 610. But that solar eclipse took place in the 9th May 1553 BC. So this is how I fix the epoch of Shakaira based on the astronomical evidence of the epigraphs. So now 27 BC, you had 3135, it comes to 3162 BC. This is how I arrived the Aihole inscription. This can be cross-verified based on the other things. But before that, we must understand what kind of calendar was followed during the Mahabharata era based on the internal evidence. The Mahabharata clearly indicates that they are using Vedanga Jyotisha calendar with the Pausha Ashada intercalation. Samvatsaraha Panchayugam Kalachakram, this as in Sabha Parva. Anu Samvatsaram Jata Apite Kuru Sattamaha Panduputra Vyarajanta Pancha Samvatsara Iva. Then Virata Parva, this is the statement made by the Bhishma. Tesham Kalatirekena Jyotisham Chavite Panchame Varshe Dvau Masa Upajayate. Clearly, this last sentence indicates that every 5th year there was the 2 months of Pausha Masas. So this is how the Mahabharata, during Mahabharata era, they followed the 5-year calendar. I have reconstructed from 3176 BC to 3162 BC how this Samvatsara, Parivatsara, Idavatsara, that the Mahabharata war, when that it took place, the year was actually last year of this 5-year cycle, that Idvatsara. So that year had a intercalation of Pausha month. Now we have a Yudhishthira Samvat, Pandava Samvat. There are numerous evidences like Jyotirvidabharanam, Kalidasa. This text refers to 3043 years of Yudhishthira Samvat. So he clearly mentioned that the Yudhishthira Samvat was abandoned after this year because we switched over from Magha Shukladi calendar to the Chaitra Shukladi. Then Vriddha Garga also says 2526 years of Yudhishthira era before Shaka epoch. And there is a Maheshwara Vanshavali, 9th year. Even Rorukas Vanshavalis, they use Pandava Samvat for the giving the chronology of their Vanshavalis. So this is how now how to identify the exact epoch of Pandava Samvat. This I got it in Yellacharya, who wrote a commentary on Aryabhatiyam. What he says, Yellacharya, Kalyabdaha Ruparahita Pandavabda Prakirtitaha. Kalyabdaha, the years of Kali, actually when you minus 12, then Pandavabda. It means he clearly states that from the epoch of Kali, after 12 years Mahabharata war took place. This is how Aryabhata's Brahma Siddhanta. Now I have to find out the what date actually Aryabhata referred as per the. So this when Ashwini, when Jupiter was in Ashwini Nakshatra, so he is referring to the commencement of Prabhava in when Jupiter was. So that was 3173 BCE. So this is actually astronomical. I'm not going into. We will discuss in tomorrow when we discuss the astronomical references. This is how 4th Yugapada. When you minus 3173 BC 12, this is the 3161 BC Magha Shukla Pratipada.
वेदवीर जी, आदरणीय वेदवीर जी, conclude करेंगे क्योंकि तब तो 10-10 मिनट का समय है.
So this is how the Saptarshis in Magha, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga's epoch, and Kali Yuga cannot commence in 3101 BCE for the Saptarshi cycle. So that's why this is the reason why Kashmiri tradition starts 3076 BC as the epoch of Kashmiri Samvat, because you cannot start Kali Yuga 3101 in a cycle of Saptarshis. So this is how I have arrived based on the Aihole inscription as well as Yellacharya's epoch of Yudhishthira Samvat. So this is how the date has been established. Now the Sri Krishna who left the mortal world in the 36th year, when you minus the 3162, 3126 BCE, this was the Prabhava Samvatsara in a Siddhanta when Jupiter was in Dhanishta Nakshatra. So this is the one in a particular, the Vaishnava tradition followed Jupiter in Dhanishta Nakshatra for Prabhava. This was the reason why Vaishnava tradition says that when Sri Krishna left the world, on the same day Kali Yuga had commenced. So this is there were the two different epochs they were referring. When Mahabharata is referring, they are referring to 3176 BC. When Vaishnava tradition referring to the Kali beginning, that is 3126 BC. This is how we can establish the both way. Mahabharata is also correct as well as Purana is also correct. So this is how we can even reconcile the chronology, because reconciling the chronology is important. I fixed the Buddha Nirvana date 1865 BC and various other, because we have to reconcile Puranic chronology and the chronology given in Buddhist and Jain sources. So entire chronology can be reconciled from the considering the date of Mahabharata war in 3162.
Namaskar to everyone. I must congratulate and compliment the organizers for their commendable effort in trying to map the chronology of Mahabharata. I think this is something that needed to be done, because to bring together different schools of thought, be it literary or astronomical or archaeological school of thought, or the practical calculations of astronomy with archaeological findings of the location and the time, somewhere has not been able to, from what I have heard, have not been able to come together in their views. But let me first begin by saying that Shastrat itself is an ancient knowledge tradition of debate and deliberation. And these past 3 days, including today, I think has been an example of that kind of deliberations. I've seen scholars, erudite scholars, I must say, eminent scholars who have worked in the area, who are part of the archaeological survey team. Professor B.B. Lal is here, and forget me if I don't mention all of you, but my namaskar to everyone and compliments to all of you for putting across your findings and looking at Mahabharata from the tradition of how do we give it a reality base? How do we bring it into our classroom with evidence of dates, the empirical data about the war, the Great War, the empirical data about the genealogy, right from, the Kuru dynasty coming down to Prithviraj Chauhan. If that's something, if we are able to succeed in putting down in a very coherent treatise, I think this kind of deliberation would be extremely successful. I thought Shastrat itself, if you look at it, it's all about how we come together to look at our Shastras or Puranas. It's known as Vad Katha. I think Vad Katha itself is, quite different from Jalp Katha or Vedant Katha. And I think today, the 3 days, what we have done is a Vad Katha, where people have agreed to come together, share their views, and look at the possibility of coming together. Look at the possibility of bringing together a treatise. We might all not agree with each other in our findings, but an effort has been made, and that is where I congratulate the organizers. A special word of appreciation to Draupadi Foundation, particularly Neera ji, for the effort. Of course, India Foundation is always there, to take everything a step forward, particularly to do with Indian culture and tradition. Mahabharata, to my mind, I will not get into the technical, data which the scholars have very succinctly put together in these past 3 days in their presentations. But I must say that Mahabharata is an encyclopedia of our own ancient culture, tradition, purusharthas, the value systems. To me, most importantly, it's a treatise towards peace and harmony. If you look at Bhagavad Gita, if you look at the entire war, although we talk about the Great War, but the idea was, how do we bring about peace and harmony? I think this is something that we should be able to put together. But if it goes by the Puranic genealogy, if we are looking at Great War, then 1924 BC would be the time of the war, is one school of thought. On the other hand, if we go by the astronomical evidence related to the Vedas, then 3137 BC remains to be a possible or plausible date. Now, a chronology of the genealogy of the rulers with the dates and the kind of social ethos that emerged out of it, the kind of ethical value system that has come down to us, is very significant. I think as Indians, what we lack, or probably this is something that we have been conditioned by Macaulayan thinking, we lack in self-esteem, and therefore we do not think much about our own texts and value them effectively. I think the gift to the future generations is how open-minded are we? How do we look at our own Indian knowledge systems? How do we look at Itihas? Itihas, the Chandogya Upanishad underlines Itihas as a repository of Vidya, of knowledge. And Ved Vyas called Mahabharata Itihas. So historiography is how we look at history. And I think time has come that we look at our own history and lay down certain very clear rules and regulations for studying our own ancient texts. I think that is where scholars like all of you, that there's such eminent scholars working on this platform. I think it's very important to rewrite the ancient, history of India going back to the Puranic time or the Vedic times, because what little history that has been there right at the beginning has come to us through the European and the Western mode. Our own scholars, have been undermined very often. So I think this can be changed by this kind of platform that has been put across. It's important to rewrite the history in terms of the Vedic times, to Upanishads, to Puranas, to mythology, and to bring, to look at it as not merely as myths, but unraveling unraveling and fathoming the factual evidence, because you go to any part of India, and that's what the archaeological sites tell us, that there are evidences of any innumerable kind about Mahabharata and Ramayana sites. So location and the evidence that astrological researchers do talk about are based on probably the literary writings. And the literary writings, we do have Aryabhat, Varahamihira. We have a lot of scholars who have written about this. The Ashtadhyayi of Panini mentions this. So we do have a tradition and a history of locating our own past that has been done in the literary tradition. It has been done through the mathematical calculations of astronomy, and done to a large extent. The kind of work that's been done by the astronomical scholars here, I think it's amazing. Are we willing to accept it? How do we put it coherently? How do we try to marry the archaeological and astronomical findings? Is something that requires a very open mind and an approach that will ensure that we are able to build a coherent treatise. We are able to synergize three different segments of the Mahabharata war, or the idea of how the war has played or continues to play a very important role. Now, it's also important, I thought, that while we unravel the puzzles of history and look at the evidences, and I think past 3 days, a lot of evidences have been recorded. Pioneering work has been done by Professor B.B. Lal and subsequently by different archaeological experts. But the Jyotish Gyan that was provided to us through astronomy, I think also it's a jigsaw puzzle that needs to be put in place. And I think a team of experts, I would strongly recommend, be brought together, who have a very open mind, the respect for tradition and our own Puranic traditions, and try to locate the facts, try to locate the dates. We may not all agree on it, but a treatise, a book, or encyclopedia of how these have been brought together, can be put together. I think this is very, very important, because today at Nalanda, I'm sure other universities are also looking at it. We are looking at teaching some of these texts. So we don't want to teach them as fictional texts, because India is governed. I think culturally we have been conditioned by our own cultural moorings, which is again to do with Ramayana and Mahabharata. Whether you take the little tradition or the big tradition in Ramanujan's concept of traditions, I think all of us have been impacted by this. So I personally feel, without getting into the details of 3 days discussion, that eminent scholars who have been here, including a doctor that I have seen who's done amazing work, I think it's very important that we bring together core scholars and get an encyclopedia out. If we embark on this mission with the help of government, the appropriate funding should be allocated. And I think it's important that the deliberations of this Shastra should be shared with the government, so that there is some research, concrete research done, where scholars can come together. And I have seen that even if you don't agree with each other, we can still find a common platform for the cause of Mahabharata or our own, not losing the Indian tradition. I think that should be the point. That these are the brief notes that I wanted to make and compliment each and every one of you. Neeraji, I compliment you for pushing the boundaries, and you have set a benchmark. I think it's very important that scholars and educationists come to the fore and ensure that we take this forward. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to listen to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the India Foundation podcast. Do like, share, and subscribe the India Foundation channel.